Hello, my name is Hannah, and today I will be discussing The Awakening by Kate Chopin. Throughout The Awakening, Edna Pontellier evolves from a woman resigned to a life of being a possession to one who craves freedom and independence, as Kate Chopin writes in chapter 26. After her summer at Grand Isle, which introduced her to the ideas of openness and emotion and the freedom of love through her friend Adele and lover Robert, Edna returns home to New Orleans, where she further begins to form herself into the person she wants to be. For some time, Edna keeps herself occupied and her mind off Robert, save for her time with Mademoiselle Reyes. However, even after engaging in an affair with playboy Alcé Arabin, Edna still longs for Robert. She even ponders what Robert would think of her intimacy with Arabin, never worrying about her own husband's thoughts. This is because she is entirely in love with Robert, intoxicatingly so. When he finally returns to New Orleans, he and Edna eventually meet back up. The couple has only one evening of honest love before everything is turned upside down. Robert leaves Edna, writing to her, "Goodbye, because I love you," in chapter 38. Robert never truly believed he could have a life with her. So, rather than risk this ideal life he's built in his mind, he leaves her heartbroken. Robert's absence is the catalyst for Edna's last action. She is in such a deep depression after her true love leaves that she spirals. And despite believing that there would probably be other men in her life, she decides that they, and eventually Robert, would all leave her mind one way or another. So, walking naked into the ocean, Edna removes the possibility of moving on. Her lost love is like lost freedom. Because of this, Edna goes back to the place where she first realized that she could have control over her life. She goes back to the sea at Grand Isle. This sea is her ultimate freedom, one that only she can control. Before she fades into oblivion, Edna thinks back to when she told Adele that she would give up anything for her children, except herself. The only way for her not to become a possession again is to take her life in her own hands and give herself that endless freedom that death brings. Now, in deciding where The Awakening stands in terms of Romanticism versus Realism, The Awakening is primarily a realistic novel. For the most part, the novel revolves around the grounded issues of protagonist Edna. It deals with themes of class differences through its mention of housekeepers and servants, and gender roles through Edna's inner conflict of the expectations of her life versus her desired life. However, The Awakening also features some romantic aspects. In describing Arabian's touch following Edna's dinner party in chapter 31, Chopin gives a special physical property to it, writing, "He stood up beside her and smoothed her hair with his soft, magnetic hand." Edna's experience with and relationship to the sea have a supernatural element to them. In the scene in which Edna swims for the first time in chapter 10, Chopin writes that she has a quick vision of death that smotes her. The way Chopin describes this dance with death almost feels as though it is a character unto itself. Like death is something that can reach out and take Edna, which, in a way, it does at the end of the novel. So why is The Awakening important for us as readers? Well, that importance lies in the journey of Edna. Rather than being content in the life expected of her, Edna breaks down barriers solely because she wants to. She completely smashes through the idea that women were meant for the home. That to be a good woman, she must stay in her unhappy marriage and care for her kids at all hours of the day. Edna wants more, and she lets herself have it. That kind of story was controversial during the time Kate Chopin wrote it. There are already many feminist movements going on at the time, but it would be another 21 years before women would even gain the right to vote. The sentiment that women should have autonomy over their lives was not a common one, which the surrounding characters in the story demonstrate. The awakening shows readers that they do not have to sit and be obedient to those who wish to control them. Freedom is a difficult thing to obtain, and as Edna's end shows, it has a price. In chapter 27, Mademoiselle Reyes's line about Edna's wings and how sad it is to see those whose wings are not strong enough fail to fly reinforces this idea. Even with Edna's resolve and strength, in the end, she cannot find another way for freedom other than death. And for today's readers, gender roles such as those described in the novel can seem very far from the current world. However, even with the many steps toward equality, there remains inequality in class, gender, and race. The idea of fighting to get some freedom is not just a sentiment of times past. It still affects people today. So reading the story and seeing how important it is for people to have the ability to choose their destiny is immeasurable. Thank you.